Hi there, and welcome to the Skylight Books author reading series. If you'd like to learn more about us and our many upcoming author events, please visit skylightbooks.com, where you can browse our inventory, buy books, and join our Friends with Benefits Club. You can also follow us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook. To speak to a real live bookseller like me, please call 323-660-1175. Thanks for your support, and enjoy.
Okay, so now on to tonight's event. I Was Their American Dream, a graphic memoir, is a triumphant tale of self-discovery, a celebration of a family's rich heritage, and a love letter to American immigrant freedom. Malaka's upbringing will look familiar to anyone who grew up in the pre-internet era, but her particular story is a heartfelt tribute to the American immigrants who have invested their future in the promise of the American dream. The daughter of parents with unfulfilled dreams themselves, Malaka navigates her childhood chasing her parents' ideals, learning to code switch between her family's Filipino and Egyptian customs, adapting to white culture to fit in, crushing on skater boys, and trying to understand the tension between holding on to cultural values and trying to be an all-American kid. I Was Their American Dream is at once a journal of growing up and a reminder of the thousands of immigrants who come to America in search of a better life for themselves and their children. Author and illustrator Johnny Sun calls it a pure and utter delight, while the Kirkus Reviews calls it a heartwarming tribute to immigrant families and their descendants trying to live the American dream. Malaka Gharib is an artist, journalist, and writer based in Washington, D.C. She is the founder of the Runcible Spoon, a food zine, and the co-founder of the DC Art Book Fair. Malaka is also a deputy editor and digital strategist of Goats and Soda, NPR's global health and development blog. Woo! Michael Nailat, aka Producer Mike, aka DJ Wax Styles, has zero formal training in DJing or producing, but is somehow still allowed to do both. Michael is one of a motley crew of astonishingly accomplished Filipinos that make up this Filipino-American Life podcast. By day, he crunches data on homelessness for the United Way. By night, he fixes computers for the Filipino Workers Center in his current neighborhood of historic Filipino town. And in between all of that, he takes pictures, lots of them. Look at that. All right, we're very fortunate to have these incredibly talented artists with us today. Please join me in welcoming Malaka Gharib and Michael Nailat.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. This is the last stop on a many city stop of my DIY book tour. So it makes a lot of sense to make sure that it ends on in my favorite bookstore in my home city. So thank you so much. Kaveh, thank you for the beautiful introduction. And thank you, Michael, for our conversation that we'll have soon. If you haven't bought a book yet, please do buy it at Skylight, but support your local bookstore. It survives because people are interested in books and buy and support local small businesses. So first I want to tell you about Skylight Books. It's a very important place for me because it was here where I bought my very first zine. And I was age 14, and I picked up a zine, and it told me that I could make my own zines and comics, and the way to do that was to take a piece of paper and fold it in half and print it and staple it, and I had my own book. So from that point on, I'd always been making books, thanks to Skylight. So this is a very special place for me. And what also makes this event special is that so many of the characters of the book that you will read about, if you haven't read about it, are here in this room right now. So they're very VIP. You should ask for their autographs because they deserve the autographs. Okay. So I just want to say thank you to my family because they actually trusted me to tell their stories and the story of our family. So first I'd like to just give a shout out to my mom who's filming it. She doesn't need to film it. There we go. Yeah? Min Min, stand up. This is Min Min, my sister. Min Min, the one and only Min Min. Tita Maro, where's Tita Maro at? He's not even here. Of course. He's parking, usual. Tita Pinky, she's in the white coat over here, also in a white coat in the book. Tita Arnell, right over here, character. Nanay, in the house, right over here, my grandma. And Tita Ovid and Tita Jean, are they here? They're not even here. So I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not pissed, but I'm just kidding. So these people are all represented, and it's amazing to have them here today. And lastly, I just want to say, this is a very important thing that I want to say. This whole experience of writing the book and a memoir about my family has been the highest honor of my life. I'm 33 years old, and to just be able to share the story of my family with you and the American people is just, it's overwhelming. It's beautiful. And to me, it normalizes and validates my whole existence. I felt like an outsider for the longest time. And for once in my damn life, I feel like I'm home, you know? So thank you for coming out. This means a lot to me. Thank you. I'm going to start things off by reading an excerpt of my book. It's my favorite chapter, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, I'm going to just do this. All right. I have to scroll through, too, so that'll be difficult. Okay. In my high school, the class president was Korean and the prom queen Filipino. At a school as diverse as Cerritos High, the most important question you could ask was, what are you? Vrinda, Indian American. Trisha, Taiwanese American. Yalda, Iranian American. Kyle, Japanese American, and so on, and so on, and so on. Later, I'd come to learn the flaws of this question, but that's another chapter, yo. In the meantime, it was one of the quickest ways to understand each other's cultures. What are you? I'm Pakistani and Muslim. Muslim and South Asian, you must be Pakistani. No, I'm Indian. Oh. Pakistani, from which part? My dad's from Tanzania. Oh, gnarly. Isn't it against your dad's religion to marry someone like your mom? Muslim men can marry non-Muslim women. But isn't Palestine not its own rightful country? I know, right? Wow, are you white? No, I'm Armenian. Oh my God, I'm half Filipino too. So when people ask me this question, I found it really hard to answer. What are you? Well, I'm Egyptian, Filipino. I grew up with my Filipino family here in Cerritos. I eat rice every day, and I went to Catholic school. But my dad is Muslim and lives in Egypt. I spend summers with him. I can understand Tagalog and Arabic. Zayik, kamusta ka? So I guess both? Well, I kind of feel more Filipino because that's who I spent more time with. That's cool, I guess. I'm just regular old Filipino. Huh. Like all kids in America, we were very heavily influenced by TV, movies, and pop culture. Total Request Live, hanging out here for hours, Tower Records and Borders, Burn CD mixes, it's NERD and Justin Timberlake, and Sublime, Buffy, Dawson, and all my friends on the WB, The Simpsons. I was especially into the TV show Felicity. I wanted what she had. A circle of smart gal pals who were into songwriting, getting good grades, and witchcraft. A love triangle between guys like Ben and Noel. Let's be serious, Ben. We all know I'm the cuter one. Sophistication in the form of anthropology sweaters and Dean and DeLuca coffee. What I really wanted, though, was to meet real-life white people, and Cerritos had hardly any. In freshman year, I had a mega crush on a boy named Jorge. He wasn't white, but he was close enough. Jorge. He was Mexican, Portuguese-American, he had fair skin, he had 8-inch frosted tips, he had a skater punk look, he loved the germs. I wanted so bad for him to like me back. Dear diary, Jorge shared his Fritos with me today. Squee! But of course he paid no attention to me. Being one of the whitest boys in school, he really had his pick of the litter. I had no freaking clue where this obsession came from. I just knew that as a 16-year-old, that white was better than whatever the hell I was. Why white people are so cool, according to high school me. They're real Americans. They do normal stuff, like eat sandwiches for lunch. They're on TV and the movies. They have perfect American accents. Howdy, y'all. I have a lot of confidence. They're richer than everyone else, obviously. They have clean, perfect houses, and they don't smell like fried fish and fried garlic in the morning. Okay, if I'm being honest, maybe I did have some theories as to why I thought this way. Maybe it was because at the time I wanted white boys to like me. Okay, they get it. You like white guys. Everyone in my town was brown. I couldn't help that being white made you extra special. People said I liked white people stuff. Weezer, Kurt Vonnegut, Daria, Jonathan Franzen, Donnie Darko. The media? Or I was taught from an early age that everything white people did was better. I saw a white woman wear this at the airport, so I bought one. Such fine taste. How do I look? Ma, you look like $1 million. Dang, it was probably a combo of all these things. By the end of sophomore year, I'd heard enough to know it about myself. What is it? You got something to say? You're whitewashed. At our school, the term whitewash had a very specific meaning. It meant you were trying to act white as a way to be cool. So I like white stuff, so what? It means you're a big fat poser. In 2002, being called a poser was even worse than being called whitewashed. It meant you were fake, a phony. Ugh, if I didn't have that trig quiz tomorrow, then I'd totally skip school. I would never skip school. I wasn't trying to be white. I mean, just look at me. Whitewash and poser were just a few of the labels I learned at Cerritos High. There was also banana, Asian on the outside, white on the inside, aka Twinkie, egg, white on the outside, Asian on the inside, fob, fresh off the boat, fobby, fresh off the boat E, AZN, cool word for Asian, flip, cool word for Filipino, ese, a term borrowed from Mexican slang, roughly meaning homie in Spanish. The lingo didn't really give me a sense of belonging. If I had to make up a term for myself, it would be za'atar-covered onigiri. Not bad. Rosewater-flavored mochi. Falafel surprise. And inside, there's a little chunk of spam. Ha ha ha. I spent a lot of time writing about this stuff, plus boys, grades, and my friend drama in my precious journal. And here's a little excerpt. 6/13/03. A few days ago, I was pretty depressed about something. I know what being depressed feels like. I read in Catcher in the Rye, the closest thing to describe the feeling. It feels like you want to eat, but you can't make the effort to swallow. That really sucks. Even amongst minorities, I was a minority. Everyone in high school hung out with people based on clubs, sport, and ethnicity. Who would be my friend? Here's a social map of Cerritos High School. You have the Pakistani jocks and the Indian jocks in one corner. You have the Filipino dancers sitting in a different place than the Filipino athletes. The Korean girls from Korea, and then the Korean girls from the US. You have the Taiwanese Magic the Gathering kids, and the Mexican punks. Sometimes I wondered if I looked a little bit more Filipino, it would be easier to hang out with the Filipinos. If they knew I was Filipino, maybe they'd ask me to join their group. When my sister Min Min, who is full Filipino, came to Cerritos 6 years later, her social life was sorted. Hey, do you want to hang out with us? Sure. She ate lunch with all the Filipino hip-hop kids, joined the Filipino club, and dated Filipino guys, and got to take one of those pictures at the mall where all the girls are doing these like cute little things. In contrast, I was ethnically ambiguous and whitewashed to boot. Some Beck lyrics. Oh, God. Sorry. Some Beck lyrics, loser. Damn, it's too real. So I hung out with anyone who would have me. Pass, nope, no, nah, next, hi. A motley crew of punk kids. The group, as we called ourselves, came from different backgrounds, but we had lots in common. Stuff we loved. We loved playing music. We loved making zines and comics. We were really into graffiti. We skateboarded, and we made fun of posers. Yo, have you heard of the band Muskrat Lemon Juice? Yeah, duh. You're a loser. I just made that band up. He's wearing a corn shirt. So he doesn't know, you know? He doesn't know. In the end, I got the label I was searching for. Most unique. It gave me so much validation. At school, I always felt like an outsider, a misfit, a weirdo. But maybe that was totally okay. Maybe that's what made me cool.
Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Michael Nailat, a.k.a. a lot of the other things that was said earlier. But mostly producer of This Filipino American Life, a podcast that explores the nuanced experiences of Filipinos in the United States at iba pa. Yeah, it took me a while to memorize that. And actually, it's kind of ironic because the reason that we even met was through Elaine, my wife Elaine, who's sitting over here in the corner. Say hi, Elaine. Who is a part of the podcast and actually does a really good job of reaching out to folks on social media and just saying like, hey, I like your stuff, we should connect. And it just so happened that I was going to DC for work, and I was like, hey, we should meet some of the folks we've met through the podcast in DC, and Malaka was one of them. And actually, I don't really even talk on the podcast that much, so it's kind of ironic that I'm talking now, and that Elaine is the one taking the pictures. So actually, I should put my camera away. So wow, okay, and actually it was really random that we got a chance to talk because I mean, I didn't think I'd had enough time to really meet with anybody, and then we connected by, email, and it was just like, yeah, I'll get me in the area. I'm going to be staying this part of DC. I really don't know much about you except for the fact that Elaine met you on Instagram or something. But let's talk, and you invited me over to your house, and we had a great conversation actually. So I really appreciate you inviting us and This Filipino American Life. Family into your life, basically.
You should subscribe. It's a great
Yes,
podcast.
please subscribe, rate us, donate to our Patreon, etc. This FilipinoAmericanLife.com. So, as you were reading through that chapter, and I think we talked about this on the podcast, it was just having grown up. I grew up in a place called Oxnard, California, Ventura County, military town, lots of different folks there. But yeah, we were talking about kind of our mutual experiences growing up in the Southern California suburb, and how sometimes it felt like, on one hand, like we were kind of trying to find kind of our space, but also kind of trying to find something that was unique about ourselves, because it felt like, being in the suburbs at least, it was hard sometimes to kind of stand out in the ways that we wanted to stand out. And as you were talking about that in that chapter, I was just like, oh my God, that was me too. So, I mean, and you go through a lot of that in the book, kind of going through some really personal stories of your experience growing up, and how you're feeling during that time, and how did that feel?
Growing up in Cerritos, we had a lot of diversity, but it wasn't intermingled. Like, you really did have the Pakistani jocks hanging out together. You had the Indian girls hanging out together, the Korean girls from Korea and the Korean girls from the U.S. And it was highly regimented. Like it was hard to break into the spaces. I remember trying to join the badminton team in high school, and it was mostly Chinese girls from China. And I applied, and then I played fine, and they said, they sort of pulled me aside and they said, you'll never get on this team. You just wouldn't mesh with us. And I was like, oh, how dare you? And it felt kind of like that at Cerritos a bit. So luckily I lucked out and was able to hang out with, I found punk music and the punk style to be something that really spoke to me, because it made me feel like, you know what, if I really leaned into it, if I'm going to be the outsider, then I'm going to go all the way, and I'm going to be an indie girl and get into punk, and that'll be my look and style. I'm going to go to the extreme. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like a lot of the outsider type people felt that way too, and did the same thing.
You're shopping at Tilly's or something? Or?
Yeah, Tilly's, Hot Topic. That was, yeah.
And I mean, so you gravitated towards that scene, and I even noticed when I came to your house to do the interview last year, just noticing the posters on the wall, you had one for Sonic Youth in the kitchen. And,
I did.
And is that something that you feel like has formalized your identity even as an adult now?
I think writing the book made me realize that your taste in life may not be actually your own taste. It may be an outside force that pushed you to that direction. After writing the book, I realized, was the only reason that I was ever into punk and music because I was an outsider. If I had been, if I looked like Min Min, would I have been more into in with the Filipino in crowd and the totally different genre? Maybe I would just be into Usher or whatever. You know what I mean? If I had looked the part, maybe I would have totally act different. And it sort of broke my heart a little bit. I was like, what do I really like? Your tastes are shaped by outside forces, and it's you sort of re-examine your life. And if you are just who am I?
Mm-hmm. Were there Filipinos in that group too, or were you like the only?
No, there was like a Iranian dude, like a Mexican guy, Portuguese guy. There were no Filipinos.
You know, it's funny. Like even like when I was in high school, like there was like the one guy who'd wear like a car coat and Dickies, and it's like, but you're Filipino, right? Like you're not listening to Notorious B.I.G. and Wu-Tang Clan. Like you're listening to like Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Like what's happening?
Even I found that there's like a homogenous Filipino identity that it seemed to be like people were more into like urban culture, and I felt like I just didn't fit that mold, so therefore could not be part of that world. So I think when people think that, oh, you went to a diverse school, you must have been like had it so good. Well, you can even feel like an outsider in your own diverse community, you know?
So, and when you went on to college and you had some specific visions about how you wanted to continue your education, Felicity playing a big part in that, moved on to New York. And you talk about it in the book, but I mean, maybe recounting that story of just like kind of what that felt like to now be in a completely different, maybe less diverse space.
Yeah. So I came into Syracuse thinking that I knew a lot about white people because I'd studied them so deeply on TV.
On the WB, thanks to WB.
Yeah, the WB, and it totally my parents and family's own like ideas about white people. Like I always remember like my this is so messed up. I won't say who said this to me, but like somebody was like, "Don't trust the white folk." I was like, what kind of like whack advice is that? Like, and then the other one was like, make sure that you always have your own money because like white people don't pay for them, like they won't pay for you like Asians will.
They don't pull out the card as fast. Like,
and I just like thought those were like so weird, like the weirdest like pieces of advice that my family could give me before I left for college, and then it was like totally like turned all the way around. At first at college, like white people were definitely not what I saw on TV. They were so varied and different. They come from different regions. I also learned that, I thought that white people all look the same. Like in high school, people always say that Asians look the same, but like I wasn't exposed to white people, so like I really thought, I always got this girl named Kat confused with this other girl. One was shorter, but she got mad, and I was like, you all look like Kat to me, so I don't know what to tell you. And it wasn't really later in life until I became enmeshed. My husband's from Tennessee, where I got to visit his hometown in Nashville and like really learn that like, whoa, like regions matter, like white people all not same, also not on TV. So I learned a lot. There's a huge learning curve going to college. But I will say one thing. I did get advice from my uncle who said that you should try to observe how white people act because that's how the real world was going to be. And I like thought that was a bunch of horse shit. I was like, I don't believe that. But in a sad way, he was right because the real world was that way. And I'm glad that I sort of was able to, I don't know, I guess like observe and sort of see how things worked.
And one of the things you mentioned in the chapter that you just read and that you cover later in the book is, that question again of like, where are you from? And that's something that you tried out there in Syracuse as well, right? And how did that get received?
Yeah, I think that I also learned for the first time that immigrants have varied experiences. Immigrant children or like people of color have varied experiences based on where they are. Like, I always thought that every brown person in America came from a place like Cerritos, where like our parents moved here in like late 1970s and early 1980s, and we were the first generation, and like therefore everybody like they all came from little immigrant towns, and they just happened to see one in the wild, and I was like, oh my God, like where are you from? And it's not that way. Like there are people who grew up in mostly white spaces, and that was a very offensive question for them, and it made them feel othered and felt like an outsider. So I learned very quickly that was like not the kosher question to ask other people of color because they did not grow up in the same situation like I did. So I also learned that the immigrant, the POC space was also very varied.
And yeah, and in the book you kind of recount how it took you a while to kind of just find comfort in your brownness, basically, right? And to like start sharing those pieces of your culture about you, even if it meant like heating up some smelly food in the microwave and like turning off like people around you. And then as you moved on into the working world and trying to kind of like find your space, one of the things I really connected with in the book was this idea that like every time you saw somebody that might have, an Asian last name or like a last name that you might recognize, that you just thought automatically that you had to be friends with them. Because one of the things you told me about was like this club that you started while you're at NPR, kind of like
Kaibigan Club.
The Kaibigan Club. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I actually never thought about race much until 2016. I was one of those people who thought that I'd lived my whole life without any microaggressions, and I was very blessed that I'd never like experienced racism, and maybe it was because I was whitewashed or because I was ethnically ambiguous. I really thought that, but when I was writing the book and I sat down to I wanted to do a page on microaggressions. I was like, let me just like see if I can write down like, one or two. But the list turned into 1 or 2, and then 12, and then 24, and then 50, and 100. And you just realize that there are so many little things that you experience in your life that you just look the other way, or you say like, oh, they don't know, or whatever. And it was a shock to myself, and it made me realize that like, why am I standing for this? Like, why do I have to pretend to be someone who I'm not? Why do I have to I kept thinking that there's this one standard in America that you had to be white to be American, and like, why isn't it okay for just me to be me, like as a Filipino Egyptian? And this was a concept that I really didn't grasp until 2016, as I said, because this is when there was the anti-immigrant rhetoric where there were such broad brushstrokes, like a bulldozer running over about who immigrants were, like bad hombres, people coming to steal jobs, like here running, like refugees running to come here out of poverty and war. And I just felt like that really wasn't my family's story. It wasn't the story of any of the people that I went to high school with. It just didn't make any sense. And I was like, I feel like we need to like correct this narrative. We need to like maybe if I just put my story out there, then people can have a little bit of nuance. And I just like felt more passionate about doing that, and that's how the book was born, I guess. And you're saying about making spaces now in in my adult life. I felt like I wasn't thinking about race until 2016, and when I did, I was shocked by how little attention I had put into cultivating my Egyptian and Filipino-ness. And once that happened, it was like a mad freaking dash. I was like, holy crap, I need to learn Arabic, and like I need to like sign up for this class at the Embassy of Oman to like learn how to write Arabic, and like I suddenly wanted to fast for the first time in my life during Ramadan, and like I was like freaking out. I was like, and then I learned there's a word for this. It's called heritage seeker. At like in the language classes, and they were like, oh, we've got a heritage seeker. She's come in. She's signing up for another class. So. And then I started the Filipino lunch club. No, I didn't start, actually. A group of us started it for an intern who really missed home. And this intern was like 21, and I was thinking like, wow, how bold. Like, we have this young person who wants a Filipino space at the workplace. This whole time I'd been hiding that and trying to suppress that. And here is a young person who wants that to be in that space. And the young generation also made me realize, like, I need to do the same. Mm-hmm. And doing that lunch club, I needed more of that than he did, Denise right there. We loved that lunch club. We cried. We were peeling shrimp with bagoong in the middle of the microwave. We didn't give a crap. We were just like we're eating fish now with our hands at work.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this on the episode, that, whenever I started a new job somewhere, the first thing I did was try to figure out, where are the Filipinos at? And at one of my first jobs out of grad school, it was like in accounting. And so when I started, they thought I was also going to be in accounting. It's like, no, I'm actually on the program side of things. And they're confused because it's like, well, you're Filipino, so aren't you supposed to be doing, the math part?
Oh, wow.
Or at least doing, yeah. But I mean, even though I wasn't even in the department, even though I didn't really like connect with them, and they were like older Filipinos, and good 20, 30-year age gap. I mean, the moment like something happened in my career, like getting a promotion or moving on or whatever, like they would come and find me and congratulate me, because they were like, oh, another one of us is like moving on and doing something different. And so almost kind of naturally kind of, creating a little bit of a community there too. I also knew I could go to them if I needed some like, rice or
Yeah.
Filipino food. It's
Got
like, oh, I
some
don't want
rice.
like this cheese sandwich from the cafe in the building. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, we have leftover adobo right here. It's like,
That's
yeah,
nice.
yeah, I'll have some of that. But yeah, just this idea. I mean, even to this day, like in my current job, whenever someone is about to get hired and they do a staff announcement, and I look at the last name, I'm like, is that Filipino?
Castro.
No, Guatemalan. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's kind of this natural tendency for us to kind of want to find people that we feel like there's some kind of like narrative connection to.
Absolutely.
And I think we talked about this also in the episode, just this idea that like coming from a place that was like relatively as diverse as the suburbs that we came from, but at the same time feeling kind of like a little bit different. I mean, kind of forced us to kind of develop kind of our own kind of culture and identity in a way that, I think both of us are still coming to terms with, even as like grown-ass people. You never figure it out, guys. You never find your place. But you
Yeah.
just start building your place, right?
I think the hardest thing is that I felt like I spent my whole life suppressing the Filipino and Egyptian side, and then when I finally became woke, I was like, I totally don't even know. Like, I've been not thinking about that, and like, am I even Filipino and Egyptian? I don't even know. Like, do I have enough knowledge about the culture and the food to even call myself one? It really scared me,
And I mean, in many ways, because you felt like you didn't quite understand even your own culture, like you basically other yourself from
I did.
from everything, really,
Yeah.
right? So how do you feel like? Where do you feel like you sit now with all of that?
I think that you have to make your own, you have to pursue, that's a really good question. I think that it's hard to answer. I think that living in Washington, D.C., with very few Filipinos and Egyptians and people of color around you, if you're in a place where there's very few of you, you really have to make an effort to create your own community. If you, a place to share and compare notes and like eat foods from home, but like, you have to go out of your way to do that. It's not going to just happen to you in the world. Like for me, my family represents my culture, and living away from them is like, then what are you even Filipino without them? Like from far away? And do you even have enough Filipino-ness in you or Egyptian-ness in you to like carry that in your real life and in your day-to-day world? I also learned from writing the book that culture is not about only the foods that we eat and the traditions and the like the dances that we do or the clothes that we wear. It's something that is baked in you, in the DNA of your being. It's the values that you have inside you. It's the way that you see the world. It's how you relate to others. It's something very intrinsic. It's something that can't be taken away. It's something that can't be seen. And I think that is what, like, if I ever freak out about, like, am I Egyptian enough, it is already baked in me. It's already here. Yeah.
And I think, I forget if I mentioned this on the episode too, but like one of the things that I've been contending with, even as we do our podcast, is this idea of like, being Filipino enough and what is really Filipino, and kind of like that as like kind of this like monolithic idea that some people tend to hold up as like a standard. Like if you're not doing these things,
Right.
you're not Filipino enough. And the thing that I've been trying to push, or at least try to like kind of get us to kind of really solidify a philosophy on, is this idea that, well, of course I'm not Filipino enough because I'm not from the Philippines. I wasn't born there. I wasn't raised there. I have no like language skills, no experiences. I don't know what my parents went through. I can hear about it. I was raised here. I'm from America, so I'm Filipino American, and that as an identity is completely distinct and different from the idea of just Filipino and Filipino-ness. And everything that I do and everything that I think we do on the podcast will never claim is like representative of the Filipino experience, because we're not from there. That's not our
Right.
story. Our story is the one that we built and that
Here.
we're developing, that identity that's within us.
Yeah.
And that can be completely different from what my parents identify as Filipino. And I think that's perfectly okay. I think that's what the American part of that really kind of relates to people.
Yeah.
So,
But in being okay with that.
yeah, and being okay with, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
I mean, I told my parents, like, hey, you know how you guys send bulk buy-in boxes back to the Philippines for our relatives? You should know right now that I'm never going to do that. Because that's not, they're your relatives and friends, and they're your, like, batchmates and all that other stuff. I don't know them. And I mean, it's not in my culture to send money back to the Philippines, because like, the relatives that I know are here already. So, I mean, I think that's something that as as first, second generation, like, of our cultures, have to contend with, like, there's this idea of this culture and connection to the motherland that is kind of impressed upon us in some ways.
Yeah.
But, the entire rejection of that is, I think, perfectly fine and is really what our identity might be at some points. I mean, I don't know. I'm glad my parents aren't here right now, actually. But your whole family is here.
I know. Yeah.
So, what has been the reaction from your family with the book? I mean, you get really into some like deep details about growing up and what that experience was like.
Yeah, I think my mom, she was a little upset when she read the book, and she said like, "Oh, you're making me out to look so poor." And I was like, "Take a number, Mom. Like almost every immigrant like who comes here is like having like a struggle bus story. It's like you're not like." Sad to say, it's like you're not like cool or special, and like it's a very relatable type of story. Unfortunately, she's cool with that narrative now. We've practiced this line before. This is like on like the crisis communications messaging documentation. Yeah. I think that the best story that I have is that my dad was also like a little upset when he found out how much of the book was I got real about this part. Actually, he just didn't want people to know that I was weighing not being Muslim, because like obviously he wants his friends and family to know that I was this perfect Muslim kid, which is like, how's that going to happen? Because I grew up with my mom. I think he was really upset about that. But anyway, he finished the book and he said, I was going to tell your brother Ahmed. My brother Ahmed is 17. He's studying in Iowa State University in August. He grew up in Cairo his whole entire life, so he's never been in the United States. I was going to tell your brother Ahmed, when you go to America, try to assimilate and be like them, because like that's like how you're going to like integrate into the community and like make friends and stuff. But after reading your book, I'm going to tell him to just be himself. Aww. Yeah, so I was like, thank you, you get it. Thank you, God. Thank you so much.
Have you had other moments like that with your family, or has anyone been like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you told that story"?
I've got heavily fact-checked by my family. It's not maba'et, it's maba'it. Okay, so my mom said she didn't take money from the mortgage because you can't take money out of a mortgage, because I didn't know that. It's equity. I didn't know that. Sorry. What else? There's like fact-checking things. Yeah.
Is your mom?
My uncle Tito Maro like hates that I put like a pad with blood on it. Like in it, like there's like a menstrual pad and it had like blood, and he was just like, ew. I was like, this is the only thing you have to say about the book? Like, Jesus. Yeah.
Is your mom a Tita baby?
She's a Tita baby.
Oh
everyone.
my God.
Yeah.
My mom too. High
Yes.
five.
High five.
I don't know if you guys know what that means, but it means that our moms are Tita babies.
Yeah. My mom's nickname is Baby.
Oh, my mom too.
It's common, apparently. Yeah.
It has a lot of meanings. So, okay, this is obviously a graphic novel. We were talking about this earlier, and there's a lot of books coming out from kind of the Philam, kind of like literary scene right now. I think this is one of the first ones I've seen as like a full-fledged kind of graphic novel, and one that goes this deep. But you have a history of doing stuff like this, right? You've done zines in the past. How about Runcible Spoon?
Yeah.
I know you did animation or cartoons for Yana Gilbuena's book, No Forks Given, which was just released a couple weeks ago. How did you end up deciding to kind of go this route with this book?
I think that growing up, I always expressed myself through cartoon. Like I if I was pissed about something, I would just draw a face and like, argh! Like I always drew my emotions rather than really like wrote prose, and then I felt like a wind was like flowing through my face. No, I'm just gonna draw my face pissed. So of course it's also a natural extension of zines and comics, so it felt like I just wanted to keep going with that medium.
So you're originally from Cerritos.
There's you tomorrow.
Hey.
Yeah.
I know you from the book.
There he is.
So originally from Cerritos, you have your whole Cerritos fam here. What do you think your life would be like if you had stayed in Cerritos? I think about this all the time. It's like if I stayed in Oxnard, I have a lot of thoughts about that. But yeah, if you had stayed in Cerritos.
I think about that question all the time. I actually am very curious to ask. I mean, like later, I'd love to talk to other Cerritos people about that same question. But I don't think leaving home is one of the best ways to appreciate home. And I felt like I didn't appreciate at the time, and I resented my ethnicities because I felt like they made me othered. But leaving home made me feel like I became like I just learned to love my cultures by leaving it. I know it sounds really weird, but I missed, like, I didn't want to eat sandwiches for lunch, as I said. I don't want to eat sandwiches for lunch. I'd rather eat, like, a packed rice lunch with, like, some Spam or something. Like, that, to me, is home. There's so many little things that I feel like that's what would have happened. If I had stayed in Cerritos, I wouldn't have appreciated my cultures. I don't think I would have come to this moment of clarity now as I would have before.
So are there stories that you wanted to tell that aren't in this book? And are you thinking about doing anything in addition? I know you do a lot of like little zines kind of here and there, but do you feel like this is told kind of the majority of the story you want to tell, or is there something else that you want to kind of add to that?
I think I credit a lot of my ability to edit out. It's like exactly what I wanted to say from being an editor myself. So like I know that the book feels very light and like it's like it moves so fast, and it really like gets like the glimpse and highlight reel, and it's super condensed. I think that the gist of what I want to say is in there. There's a lot of like little stories and anecdotes in anyone's life about like feeling alienated or feeling included for the first time, or but it's always like variations of that same story. If I ever did another book, though, I would expand on what it was like to visit Egypt over and over and over and over and over again through like my lifetime. I became like a person there. Like I had a very formative time during those summer trips. I'm sure that many of you have gone summer trips to your whatever homelands you have, and seeing your American culture from like the outside. I also had my first boyfriend there, Philip Stoos. He was German, and I met him at a resort town. So I'd like to expand on that. I was 13.
Just add it in the DVD extras. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to throw it out to the room since there's so many of you.
Yeah.
Again, music playing a big part of your life and really defining kind of who you were and how you connected with people. What are you listening to now?
Oh, I'm in a phase, like actually working on the book has made me really, really appreciate new music. I was in a funk for a long time. I'm listening to Idols. It's a punk band. I'm listening to Pup. It's another punk band. I'm listening to Lizzo. We saw her at Tiny Desk. She was amazing. Let's see. Those are like the three bigs that I can think of at the moment. My life is party all the time in my head with those headphones. Yeah.
Yeah, once you hit 30, you're just like, you know what? Spotify is my party now.
Those were all Tiny Desk things, so like
it
wasn't even real. Like it wasn't me like discovering it myself. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're at NPR and all this stuff kind of just comes through there, so it's not like you
Yeah.
have to like go too far
Yeah.
to catch a lot of these artists. So, just want to throw it out to the room. If there's anybody who wants to ask Malaka a question, has an embarrassing anecdote from her youth since her family's here. Anybody? Don't be shy, or I'll keep talking.
Hello.
Like, there you go.
Hello. Oh, thank you. I totally I wrote a little zine about it on my Instagram. It's called Listening to Punk While Being Filipino. So it's also about that experience of like, why do I even like this music? It's trash, but like, I don't know. It's because I'm an outsider and I'm sad. So yeah.
Yeah, if you don't follow her on Instagram, I mean, on your I Was This American Dream kind of Instagram, and there's also your personal one. But
Personal one.
you do this thing that I always thought was so interesting. I kind of want to do it if I just had the discipline for it. It's just write a little zine and kind of just hide it somewhere. For someone to kind of just discover on the bus, or like they're at like the bookstore and all of a sudden this thing falls out and it's almost kind of like this like little treasure Easter egg.
I write like love notes to people randomly in the world and just leave them around. Yeah.
Highly recommended. Anybody else? Right
Hello.
there.
Yes. Sure. Yeah, I think what's been really lovely is like the outpouring of like, holy shit, that was my life too. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. My favorite story of recent weeks is that this Bangladeshi American middle schooler reached out. Anyways, it was I had found this teacher reached out and said like, hey, my student wrote like a book report about your book. She's like in middle school, and she in her essay she wrote like, people always say that I'm Indian, but like I'm not Indian. I'm from Bangladesh. And whenever people say that I'm like whenever I tell people that I'm from Bangladesh, they're like, where is that? Is that in India? And I'm like, no, it's below India. And I used to let them just call me Indian, but I'm not going to let them call me Indian anymore. I am Bangladeshi, and I want people to know that, so thank you. And I was like, yes, let them know that you're Bangladeshi. Why are you like, don't even compromise. Yeah, so like I've heard from a lot of people, and especially young people, and it fills my heart with so much joy. I've also heard from a lot of like white people too, saying like this has helped me understand my POC partner better, or like thank you, like I totally just didn't know that. So it's been from everyone of all ages. Yeah. Hello, is that Tito Ovid? Tito Ovid, go ahead, ask a question. Yes. Yeah. So I wrote this book because of the anti-immigrant sentiment that was coming out after the 2016 elections. I felt that the media and others around it were sort of painting immigrants in a very broad brushstroke as like being these desperate poor people who were just like trying to come into the country, and I felt like that wasn't an accurate narrative of how we grew up, right? Like we had a lovely, lovely time. We ate Chinese food every Sunday, remember that? All together as a family, it was lovely. So I felt like if I had just shared that picture of America, then maybe others would relate. So they did, which is great. And the second part of your question, I didn't know what this book was going to be about before I wrote it. I had some very good advice given to me that writing is about discovery. And I wanted to discover who I was and what being American meant to me. And I did that by going chronologically and starting from mommy and daddy's story. And as I unearthed it, I realized that I had been freaking out about whether I was American my whole life, and I wanted to make mommy, mommy worked a hard life, and I just wanted to do her proud. And was that my dream or was that her dream?
It's funny, like when I went to school, I went to UC Irvine with Elaine and some other folks, and I couldn't finish my engineering degree. I ended up becoming an Asian American Studies degree major. My parents were like, why do you need to study that? I mean, like, you know our stories, you know your own experience. Like, what does it matter to kind of like, why do you need to get a degree in that? And what would you even do with that knowledge? And I think part of self-discovery is kind of understanding kind of like, there's these stories that we know and the stories that we're familiar with. There's our family and the things that we kind of absorb through all of that. But to a certain degree, when we talk about like representation and like the things that kind of represent us as a culture and a people, it's not just food, it's not just music and dancing, all this other stuff. It's kind of like our stories, our narratives, right? And we think about like why we even started our podcast. It was like less about the fact that we just wanted to hear how weird our voices sounded recorded. It was more about like, we may not have the most unique stories, who knows? We might not have something that relates to other people, who knows? But there's something to be said about being able to kind of identify, share, your own personal stories and your own personal connection to kind of like, your experiences and the things that really shape your identity. Because, again, this whole idea of like America, American identity, everything else, is only a monolith and only like a singular thing to the degree that we let it be that. Right. And so like I think you writing your story and sharing your story and really helping people understand and expand kind of this idea of what does it mean to grow up in this country, even in a nice, middle class suburb like Cerritos, or like, in any other community. Like, just because my story is not the same as your story doesn't mean it's any less useful or valid or worth contributing to that larger kind of narrative, right?
I think that actually reminds me of a question. I think somebody had asked, like you had asked, how is your story different from? I mean, how did your parents and family react to your book? I think that really they were surprised that I even had these types of struggles. I don't think our parents know how difficult it is to grow up in this country and have these super high expectations to succeed and to be American. Like it's very difficult. So I think that they'd be surprised to know, they thought that they came here, we gave you everything, so you should be super happy and good luck to you. And, it's hard for us too, We'll take a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Yes, Tito Arnell. My family, everyone. Yeah. What American is? Not just white people. Like, I think it was a really, really long roundabout way for me to say, hey, I'm American too. Like, I finally, came to that and, really felt it. Like, I could say it to myself, but not really feel like that meant those words had power. But now I feel that when I say that I'm an American, those words have complete power. Because I worked on this for 3 years, and I know that from my own personal narrative that these words are held to be true. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Skylight Books author reading series. Don't forget, you can listen to this and all of our other great podcasts at skylightbooks.com. Thanks again for stopping by, and we hope to see you soon.